Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence. Put in the work for yourself and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Thursday, January 11th. We're going to take a look at our old friend, SoFi. So SoFi was holding this uptrend support for a while off of that 641 level. Worked its way through this 791, aka just ahead of $8 resistance level, flipped it to support, big push up, and then continued to roll and then gap down. That's this purple area here. We have a gap that it would enter to the upside, not quite at 911. It would be at about 903, and it would fill it at about 952. So if it wants to, show a little bit of recovery here and put that gap in play, that's something interesting to look toward. Now, first things first, we have this resistance level at 847 that we've had on the chart for quite some time. That's probably more just a psychological battle for 850, and that's the struggle for the time being, that it's just hanging on the lower branch of, right? So it's just kind of like being able to nip at that level periodically, but it's not really even putting through solid candle bodies, in the center of those candle bodies consistently. So for the moment, it looks like it's sort of shedding off of that level. Now, if it does, then we're going to be down here in the battle for 8, most likely. I know we have 791 on the chart. There's a decent amount of recent price action put in here on like 809, right? You see like tops of this candle body, this candle body. This candle body even is right in that vicinity, as is this one. So what I would anticipate here, unless there's some sort of like really bad catalyst that kicks it down further, is if it does pull back further, I would expect some friction as it tries to lead in toward 8. So, around that 805 to 810 area, sort of buyers and sellers wondering, okay, are we really going to retest 8? And then if it does, then that would throw this 791 into play. So, this is me just calling out that like 810 to 805 range. I'm not going to put it on the chart because I don't want to clutter it up even further. That's also why, I didn't move these levels, because these are support and resistance levels. I didn't also put in additional gap levels because I didn't want to clutter it. So just trying to call those out verbally. So we'll see, if that persists or not. Unfortunately, it was putting in a bunch of lows right around here at about this like about 815-ish area. And then, today's dipped it down further. The low right now, at least 806. So dipping below where buyers had been showing up, in these 3 candles, these 3 days here. But it's sort of like we say all the time, you go to the well too many times and it dries up, right? You keep expecting buyers to show up for very little return on them showing up at that level, around like 815 or so, and eventually they just don't show up again the next time that it gets there. And it's a bit of what happened today. So we'll see if that persists or not. But if it does and it gives way through that $8 level, 791 would be the level that I would be looking at to see if that can hold, much like we saw it hold here. And that might sort of like give it sort of like striking distance back and forth to continue to retest 8, right? Like sit just under 8, continue to retest it, and essentially do the same thing where sellers showing up around the $8 level, maybe they can exhaust that selling pressure and then push back through and move back toward this, 847 level. That's sort of a hypothetical potential scenario, but that's sort of what I'm looking for. One of those 2 things to play out, either getting support just ahead of that $8 level or coming down and maybe trying to play, that scenario out that I just spoke about around 791. Now, of course, it could fall and dip below there and come down here around like 755-ish, maybe 750, right? You see all this candle action here encompassed in that range. So if it does come down, stock exchange will be closed on Monday, January 15th. Okay, thanks, Weeble. Great timing. If it does dip down below 791, I'd be happy to come in and put in some additional levels if folks are interested and sort of assess things at that point. Like I said, if it does start to rise, I'd look for anything that puts this gap in play. It may take a while, who knows? There was also, this gap here that it filled with this action. And sometimes we see when, a gap fill happens, especially if it's filling it to the downside, that the momentum that creates, the selling pressure that sort of brings in, especially in longer distressed stocks where people are a little bit jittery, a little bit unsure of any move up, that can sort of like just drag them down based on the momentum. Now, nothing happening on the TTM squeeze indicator as of yet. We do see on this big gap down, pinned it right under the mid-range of the channel. This channel is still quite wide. We look, maybe back here, a little bit here, a condensing of the price action, but it spent much of this time period with relatively wide channel. So, volatility is still sort of potentially in play, meaning it could rise all the way up to mid to high nines and still be within the channel, right? And that would be a huge percentage change. But we'll see what happens. Right now, flattening out of the trend, you see we have this green uptrend, flattening out, neutralizing it as of now, while the bearish momentum is picking up on the histogram. Like I say, no trigger or fire happening on the TTM squeeze indicator at this point, so the questions for the time being are going to be, can this stabilize and can it retest anything around the mid-range of the channel? Is this bearish momentum on the histogram going to continue to pick up, and if so, does that push it down to or even out of the bottom bound of the channel? And do we then get ourselves into something that looks like, a prolonged, repetitive, continuous bearish drawdown like we've seen for a lot of SoFi's life? We'll have to see, but that's sort of what I'm looking at on the think or swim side of things. I do think the Webull, to me, these levels are sort of more telling and are just sort of more clear, and leave less sort of a huge range of potential versus what we see here in this super wide channel. Just knowing that it could gain or lose still a significant percentage and still be within the channel sort of can sometimes make the channel a little harder to read in my mind. All right, folks, I hope that you've had a nice trading week, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.